Right, good morning everybody, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you happen to be, he says, quickly getting a summary out of the way. My name is Paul, I'm also called Nick Nack. You probably know my TV and movie reviews and the Daily Teaser, and you hopefully have seen both my YouTube channel, Mr. Cuddy 2977, and my blog, Nick Nack's Old Peculiar. This is not a review, or a quiz, or me talking about TV or movies. It's an introduction to something of a serious subject and something of a confession. Simply this, that I've not spoken about politics on Nick Nack's Old Peculiar for a while, nor have I talked about it on my YouTube channel, Mr. Cuddy 2977. There's been, from where I'm sitting, very little directly to write about outside of the intros to the quizzes I write. However, I'm writing or performing this video at the start of January 2024, and I'm very aware there's a good chance of a general election this year. While I'm aware it could be as late as January the 28th of 2025, I'm also aware it's likely to be this year. I'm very aware that general elections and their accompanying local elections give us the chance to vote for suitable candidates. There's a catch, possibly. Radio 4's Today programme, today on the 4th of January, told us that Labour Party leader Sir Keir Starmer was, is or has, depending on when you're watching this, made a speech today, and in part has said,
"Don't listen to the siren voices that say we're all the same. We're not, and we never will be."
I have to say I think I might disagree with him there. I've always felt that MPs, red, blue, yellow, green, orange, what have you, are much of a muchness. Now, on top of that, and in a speech in Mansfield today, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak tells us that his working assumption is that there will be an election in the second half of this year. In other words, any time between the start of July and the 28th of January 2025. That gives political parties time to start writing manifestos and to start slinging serious mud at each other, and it gives the likes of you and me a chance to have a good long think about who, if anyone, we're going to vote for. Part 2, more confessions. Right. So with all of that said, and I will be thoroughly honest here, I've not necessarily made up my mind about who, if anyone, to vote for. As things stand now, though, used to be that I'd vote for the Liberal Democrats. I was a lifelong Lib Dem voter until they became part of the 2010 coalition Tory government, which I personally felt then and still feel now was and is a piece of arrant treachery that lost them my vote and meant I've never voted for them since. The Tories, the Conservatives, I would possibly have voted for them once if they paid me by keeping the 20 quid uplift to universal credit. They didn't. They lost their chance, and I'm, again, doing what I usually do and not voting for them ever. I think I've only ever voted Labour once when Tony Blair was party leader. His subsequent support for the Iraq War put me off voting for them. That left me wondering what to do, frankly. Occasionally, I'd vote Green if they were standing in my ward or constituency in a given election. I voted for them in 2017, for example, even though I was a little bit unsure about their policies on what gets called universal basic income. It's a proposed benefit. Go look it up. But needless to say, at the time, I felt their figures didn't stand up, or didn't stand up to my scrutiny, and didn't add up. Didn't stop me voting for them that once, and it didn't stop me voting for them again in subsequent local elections. The Brentwood and Ongar branch's recent decision not to field candidates in some Brentwood wards did stop me. They can only afford to stand in so many wards, and unfortunately Brentwood West, my particular ward, is one of them. So it was about then that I started doing what I've been doing for a little while now, spoiling my vote, or at least spoiling my ballot paper. It's something I've done in most elections since about 2019, and something I've encouraged others to do as well, should they feel the need. Now, you've probably listened to me shunter on like that and thinking to yourself, okay, Paul, why spoil your vote? It's because over the past few years' worth of elections, we've seen parties that, to me, look extremely alike, and candidates that, to me, look extremely alike, which is why I disagree with Keir Starmer this morning when he said he and his party were different from others. To me, it is honestly hard to tell the difference between some candidates beyond maybe the colour of the tie. It's hard to tell the difference between one party's left-wing policies and one party's right-wing policies and one party's middle-of-the-road policies, or slightly green policies, or slightly orange policies. It is honestly hard to tell. None of the candidates I've seen in the past few years, beyond possibly former Labour MP Jeremy Corbyn and current Green MP Caroline Lucas, seem to be old-fashioned conviction politicians. None of them seem worth voting for or distinct enough to make your mind up about. Feeling none of those candidates are worth voting for means spoiling my ballot is a worthwhile way of saying you're not worth my vote. Now, I know some of the counter-arguments. Sorry, my phone's beeping there. I know some of the counter-arguments. My mum and my two sisters have all pointed out that women fought hard for the vote, and that such a thing should not be wasted. That's perfectly true. But from where I'm sitting, current law puts women in the same position as men. That fight puts us all in the same space, if you will. We all have the right to vote. We all have the right to choose who to vote for. And we all have the right not to vote if we so choose. We all have the right not to vote if we believe none of the candidates are worth voting for. Another argument is quite simple. Why not just not vote? Why not just not bother? Why not just walk past the polling station and totally ignore it? My answer there is relatively simple. For once, I would rather be a vaguely positive statistic. I'd rather go on the record as a spoilt vote, as a voter who actually turned out to vote, in theory, for someone rather than somebody who didn't bother. That's the sort of statistic I'd like to be. A third argument says that a spoilt ballot is a wasted vote, that I could be one that I could use by voting for a candidate who is the least worst option. That to me seems to be also an invalid choice. Remember, over the past few elections, I've gone into the voting booth, looked at the list of candidates and concluded none of them are worth voting for. Let me repeat that here. None of them are worth voting for. In my view, there is no least worst option. There is no compromise candidate. My only options are to walk past the polling station, which I'm not comfortable with, or to spoil my vote, which I am. Right, now, is there any possible solution to that? Is there anything that would persuade me to not spoil my ballot papers? Apart from politicians becoming individually worth voting for. Yes, there is. Potentially. I know that most UK politicians, local or national, are allowed to not vote for something if they can't vote in good conscience for or against it, or if they have good reason not to vote for it, or have a good reason to miss the vote. Whatever it is, they can abstain. Politicians can abstain, indeed have to abstain, if there's a conflict of influence. We, you and me, the average UK voter, can't. At least not beyond spoiling our votes or not voting at all. We can't abstain. We cannot do what politicians do. Personally, I think having an I abstain tick box or a none of the above option on voting slips would be a good idea. It would allow those of us who don't want to vote for any of the assorted idiots on the rest of the slip, but still wanted to take part in the election to register a formal protest first. It allows us to do so. I don't see it happening in my lifetime, frankly, but that, I think, would be really, truly democratic. Thank you for watching. My name is Paul. I'm also called Knickknack. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to see more interesting stuff, or at least silly stuff about Doctor Who, movies, films, and TV shows, and quizzes. I'll see you next time. Have a very happy New Year, whichever way you plan to vote in the elections, and whatever you're doing for the rest of it. Take care.